Hi there, Kar Yong here, and in this video I'd like to walk you through a quick review, or I would say summary of what has happened in the past week in terms of the financial markets, and of course going forward into the new week, what are some of the things that you probably want to keep an eye on, and we'll discuss some of the more popular and commonly traded assets in the financial market as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'll show you my screen, and then from there we'll walk you through a little bit more into what we want to discuss in this particular video. Now, first up over here, let's take a very quick look as to what has happened last week. Okay, and of course there are quite a bit of things, but usually I'll just highlight the top three that I find most interesting to be talking about, and of course some food for thought, right? So first up over here, you can see this website, the article talks about BlackRock calls for investors to leave allocations to Chinese or China's market, right? Okay, and essentially what it's talking about is BlackRock's research said that China right now is not to be considered an emerging market. And what's very interesting is that they recommend investor to boost their exposure in the country by as much as 3 times, right? Of course, this does not mean that it's a direct recommendation, but from this article and the content that they actually put up, I would say that BlackRock is perhaps bullish, at least for the long term, in the China market. Now, on this side, right? Personally, I'm a little bit I wouldn't say aligned, right? So I think it's a very differing view for me, okay? Because for me, I feel that right now, at this very moment, you probably would not want to get overly exposed in the Chinese stocks or the China market, okay? Because the risk is still really not, that worthwhile, okay? Yes, the upside might be huge because if you look at the Chinese stocks recently, okay, on average, most of them has dropped more than like 50% or even like up to some of them 70%, right? But for me, I don't think the risk is worthwhile at this moment. Okay, so this is just something that I thought is interesting because we do have very differing view right now, right? So BlackRock is I would say long-term bullish in the Chinese market, okay, and of course you do have some institutions also giving warning to investors and say that you might not want to touch the Chinese market for now. Okay, but I think more importantly, it's not just about reading this article and then following them blindly, but the important aspect here is, of course, you need to have your personal investment strategy and investment thesis, right? So just want to bring this up because it's pretty interesting. Even to today, I think it's still in the progress of the crackdown, increase of regulation, and things like that. Okay. The other interesting article that I thought might be worth mentioning is Facebook says it's ready to launch its digital wallet. Now, I still recall, and you followed some time back, Facebook and of course a couple of companies was initially looking to launch its kind of like digital currency, right, towards crypto, but that did not go ahead. It wasn't successful, and right now Facebook is looking to launch its digital wallet. Okay, and of course it's to me it's very interesting because maybe what we can see moving forward for Facebook is perhaps an ecosystem as well, right? In terms of like you are able to now purchase and send money to your friends perhaps directly within Facebook, and that's going to be very interesting. And the part here is I would say the question is more of like, would Facebook valuation then increase, right? Is there an opportunity for us to go and look into Facebook and perhaps buy into it, okay, buy into the stocks, of course, to look for any potential upside. Okay, so something very interesting to keep an eye on. Then of course, right, if you are looking to trade and invest in the financial market, definitely you want to keep a very close watch in terms of what the Fed is probably going to do. Okay, so last week we did see the market actually whipsaw a little bit, right? At the beginning of the week, we did see that dip, okay, in the equities market, and after that, we kind of see a strong rebound as well. This is really because, as the article talk about how potentially the Fed might be starting to announce its tapering process in September. Okay, and as usual, if the Fed starts to do tapering, it will tighten the liquidity in the market, and therefore stocks generally tend to correct when that happens. Okay, so do take note of this. I think it's very interesting, and it's also very important that if you're trading currency market, the stock markets, definitely the US Fed, what they're gonna do, their decision, you definitely need to be aware of that. Okay, so this is some of the things that I thought was pretty interesting, okay, for you guys to keep an eye on. So moving forward, right, these are some of the things we're gonna look out for. Okay, we're gonna discuss mainly the dollar, okay, the S&P, gold, and of course Bitcoin. Okay, and over here, the methods that I tend to use to analyze the market, of course, primarily will be based on the technicals, based on Elliott wave principle. But I want you to know it's not just simply based on the charts alone. I do factor in macro liquidity, the fundamentals of things, the sentiment in the market, and of course, another layer here that we are using is the seasonal. Okay, so let's take a look at the US dollar first. We'll be looking mainly on the 4-hour and the daily time frame. Okay, so from a daily time frame perspective, we do see the dollar going back, last week, going back to its previous high that was established like early April, end of March, and we do get a small daily, break and close above it, but the following day it kind of like did a rejection of that level. Okay, so most of the time we don't trade off just because price breaks high and low. But whenever price reaches a key zone, whether is it a significant high or a significant low, we tend to spend more time and effort monitoring it because we want to see how price is going to react from there. So looking at the DXY chart as of today, okay, we are anticipating that we might see a decent pullback. Okay, I did include a little bit of fibs over here, but whether is it going to be a deep retracement back to the 50% or not, of course we won't know. Okay, but that's the expectation, right? Somehow or by certain way, we do expect kind of like a correction. Okay, it's just a matter of whether is it going to be a shallow correction or is it going to be a very deep correction. Okay, so if you're looking at the dollar, then you might want to also maybe be cautious on that if you're looking at it. Okay, this is of course not a call, it's just my personal analysis and the view on it, and hopefully it'll be able to help you to get another insight of that. Okay, so the idea here is mainly from this entire structure you can see on the chart is going up very slow. Okay, and of course we do have that small little impulse, but this can easily pulse back down, then this can come back all the way as well. Okay, so do keep an eye on that. I don't think you want to immediately buy or sell next week, but if let's say it starts to progress, maybe going into Wednesday, you start to see a clearer setup of a rejection, then you might take the opportunity to short the dollar for the second half of the week. Okay, one thing to take note of is of course from a seasonal point of view. Okay, on the 24th of August to the 4th of September, based on the past 10 years, there's a 70% chance that dollar would rally during this period, right? So it's actually 24th of August is somewhere around mid-week, okay, which is probably going to be an alignment with what we are seeing, right? Because if let's say Monday and Tuesday it starts to form kind of like a decent correction, okay, then maybe somewhere between this window of period, 24th of August to 4th of Sep, we might then see the opportunity to buy the dollar from there. Okay, so keep an eye on that, but overall I think for now do look out for the retracement in the dollar itself. Okay, so this is another instrument here to talk about is the S&P. Okay, so what you see of course the whipsaw, right? As just now we discussed in the article, we did see the dip early last week and then after that a recovery from there. Okay, from a technical point of view, we call this kind of V-shaped pattern or structure. Okay, usually you do not want to touch it. Okay, but looking at things here, I think the momentum can follow suit towards 4480. Okay, that means probably maybe a tiny bit of consolidation and then the next push to the upside. Okay, so do look out for that. I think next week you might want to see if the momentum can carry through to the next high, which is 4480. Okay, and then adding on to that, 25th of August to 29th of August, which is a couple of days, we have a very strong seasonality in the S&P market, right? Based on the past 10 years, 9 years, or 90% it rallied. So the idea again going into next week is that if let's say early of the week it does a consolidation, maybe between 25th of August to 29th of August, we can then see that push back up towards 4480, okay, and that can be a short-term trade to the upside as well. Okay, another instrument that I would say is interesting to keep an eye on is gold. Okay, so from a technical point of view, from an Elliott wave point of view, we are seeing kind of a consolidation for last week, and before that we have an impulse push. Okay, so whenever we see a combination of this, there's a good chance that from a technical point of view we can see further upside. Okay, and adding on to that, we are currently in the season of buying, okay, which means from 27th of July to 3rd of September, gold has a very high probability of rallying. Okay, there's an 80% chance it's going to rally. So we do have an alignment where if you start to combine various factors in, right, from gold chart, technical analysis is telling us to the upside. The seasonal for gold is also telling us to the upside. And from the dollar index chart, if let's say dollar were to come back down as a form of retracement, a weakening dollar can also send the XAU USD higher as well. Okay, so you do have multiple factors coming in together, right? And if let's say there are some kind of uncertainty going on in the market, and we are transiting back into maybe a risk-off environment, okay, then this would also send gold higher, right? So that's where you start to see multiple understanding of the market can actually help you in your trading as well. Okay, and the last instrument here to talk about is Bitcoin, right, on the crypto market. So Bitcoin recently broke through that 41,000, of course, and it continues higher, right, with the momentum. We did talk about it as well. As of today, it's trading somewhere around 48,000, 49,000. One thing I would like to kind of like share is perhaps you want to be a bit cautious because of the technical pattern that we're seeing over here. Okay, you wouldn't want to buy off just like that, okay, because most of the time after a strong push you do see some kind of consolidation or correction before the move continue, right? It's always the case, right? You see this here, an impulse push, a consolidation, and then another impulse push, a consolidation. And the question now is, will we see a bigger consolidation back before the push, or is it going to be a tiny one? Okay, so in this case, of course, no trader will know, including me, but the idea is, of course, to keep monitoring, keep yourself updated as of what the price is doing, what pattern is it developing. Okay, to add a layer of seasonality to that, between now until 27th of August, which is somewhere, next week, there is a good chance that Bitcoin will drop, right? Based on the past 10 years, 70% of the time during this window of, in August, second half of August, we do see Bitcoin drop. Okay, so over here, perhaps next week, you might want to be a little bit cautious on that. We can definitely see kind of a consolidation back down, perhaps towards this low here, where we can see it somewhere around 43,800 level, right? Somewhere around that zone. Perhaps that will be a better area for you to consider if you're looking to buy up Bitcoin. Okay, so that's the view that I have, on this. Okay, so I hope today's video over here give you a quick summary of what has happened in the past week, right? That's interesting. Of course, that's not everything that happened, but I think those are the I would say important and interesting things to me. Okay, and of course, moving forward, going into the new week, sharing with you some of the important and more commonly traded asset. I do hope I give you some different insights and perspective into the market. So with that, all the best for you and of course for me, and we'll see how the market develops.